Welcome to ATA Talks About, your podcast show presented by the Aruba Tourism Authority, Create, and Soppy Mix Studio from the creative room here at ATA HQ. And welcome back, everyone. This is the first episode of ATA Talks About, Season 2. We're shaking things up a little bit this season. In Season 1, we had most of the ATA team members as guests in every episode. This season, we're inviting even more of them, but also a number of key stakeholders, partners, agencies, and other special guests, all in the hopes of getting a better glimpse and understanding what it really takes to build a thriving tourism industry, such as the one we have here in Aruba, and hopefully keep it that way. So in today's episode, we will have a chance to talk to some of the industry's most important leaders to check up on the state of our tourism industry. How is the tourism industry doing? Where are we in terms of recovery? What are the future plans? And what are the challenges that lie ahead? This and much more during today's episode of ATA Talks About. So let's welcome the CEO of the Aruba Tourism Authority, Ronella Croes, the President and CEO of the Aruba Hotel and Tourism Association, Tisa Sorte, and of course, our special guest for today, CEO of the Aruba Airport Authority, Joost Meijs. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
So how has it been?
Good.
Good.
Robust.
Happy to be here and be able to share info and have a great conversation. Thank you for accepting the invitation, by the way.
Great.
Thank you for the invitation.
So we're recording after lunchtime. What did you have for lunch, if I may ask?
Too many carbs.
I'm Dutch, so I had a sandwich with some cheese and a glass of milk.
I used to live in the Netherlands, and that's very Dutch indeed. No, so
I
I'm
always
also
go light, so
Yo.
a fruit and nuts.
good. Hopefully, we have enough energy for today's episode because we're going to have
Certainly.
quite a conversation. Of course, the main topic for today, the state of the Aruban tourism industry. But before we get into that, so this is season 2, Ronella, of the ATA Talks About podcast. Can you tell us or remind us why this is such an important thing to do? So we're recording, we're launching this season 2.
Certainly, yes. The first round has been a pleasure to share with the community. In any case, in that round, what the ATA does. So, and I love the fact that about podcasts, it's on demand, so you can always go back and check it out. And it continues to be important and vital for the ATA to share more information on the tourism industry and to obtain feedback as well. We obtain feedback, of course, every day. No matter where you turn, people have something to say about tourism and they have their thoughts. And that's what I love also about the community. So engaged in terms of tourism and many, many ideas. So through our podcast series, we try to inform, address things that come forward on a day-to-day basis, and also align in terms of vision, but also actions. At the end of the day, tourism and the well-being of tourism is a collective effort. It is not only a task of the ATA, nor AHATA, nor AAA, if I may say, but it is a collective effort.
Yeah.
So this is part of the efforts in that regard.
Great. Tisa, you're going to be on a couple of episodes during season 2.
Thank you.
So what do you hope to give the audience through the episodes?
Yes, I would agree with Ronella. I think everybody knows in Aruba, or most people know in Aruba, that tourism is important to the island. Everybody understands that it supports our economy, and that if you have a robust economy, everybody benefits from that. Without money coming into the island, not only can you not have a good quality of life, but you cannot solve social problems, right? It's with that income that you have funds available to solve social problems. So indeed, it's important to the island. But not everybody understands what it takes to have a successful tourism industry, what the pros and cons are, how sensitive are we to the community in terms of how they feel about tourism, and what it takes to provide that excellent service so that Aruba can continue with that high reputation and continue creating demand with the marketing, for example, that Aruba Tourism Authority does. It does require a lot, and it takes the thousands and thousands of people that work in this industry also to support it.
Great. Joost, you're also not unfamiliar to the podcast scene. I mean, AAA also has its own show. Tell us a little bit more about not only the show that I think it's called Buckle Up, but also why. Why do you think this is so important?
Well, to be transparent, I think that is communication is a part of being transparent, and I think every company in Aruba or all over the world should be working on transparency, especially airports, because an airport is normally enclosed institute. You can only go in with a ticket, or you can only go in with an airport badge. And there's so much going on, which is nice to share with the community, and that is where Buckle Up is for. We are very innovative as AAA. We try to be ahead on the cycle, and we want to share that with the community. So there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes which you do normally not see, and we bring that in the air by our Buckle Up podcast.
Good, great. And Joost, I'm going to ask you this question right away. So we have two female leaders sitting here with us, both from Aruba. You're the CEO of the Aruban Airport Authority, but you're from the Netherlands. What brings you to Aruba and why?
Well, briefly, the adventure. No, the airport business. I think what my background is in the aviation. I was, prior to my position here in Aruba, I was the CEO of Eindhoven Airport in the Netherlands. And at a certain moment, the CEO of Schiphol called me and said, "Are you in for an adventure in Aruba? Because we have a collaboration with the airport of in Aruba, and an element of that cooperation is that we can nominate a Schiphol group, not appoint, of course, but nominate the CEO." And after having spent 12, 13 years in Eindhoven, I was ready for the next step. And that was one part of the story. And the other part of the story is that my wife and me, we were talking about our careers regularly, and we have always said to each other, when the opportunity comes again to go abroad, we will do it. And just for having a change of scenery. And I had worked before in Brazil, and I liked that a lot. And well, this chance was in Aruba, and I never regret the moment that I decided to move with the whole family to Aruba and to live here.
Great. So we'll talk about the adventure in upcoming segments. Tisa, you were in the hotel industry before moving to AHATA. What happened? What made you take the decision to move from the hotel industry and move into the association?
Yeah, prior to the hotel industry, actually, my background is in journalism and broadcasting. But yes, indeed, I was at the hotel management before I came to AHATA. And for me, the change was that when you're working for a hotel, your biggest priority is to benefit the well-being of that hotel, right, and its employees. And moving to AHATA, to me, gave me the opportunity where I felt like I could have a contribution to the benefit of the whole industry, and therefore Aruba's economy in general.
Great. Ronella, we know we talked about this in season 1, but I still want you to remind us, your background is in the tourism association business or industry, because you were in Bonaire, but you came to Aruba. So tell us about that move.
Indeed, I have not had the pleasure and honor of working in the private sector front of tourism. I worked in let's say another fast-paced industry, which is telecommunications before that. But I was fortunate to be given an opportunity to be part of the tourism industry in Bonaire, in the position of being the director of tourism there. And that was a fast-track learning curve for me. And the beauty of Bonaire is that you're involved from every aspect of managing tourism in organization, but also tourism industry, so from A to Z. So I'm happy and fortunate and blessed that when approached for a position here in Aruba, that others saw also that had value. So a remarkable journey, certainly, in my case. And I speak on behalf of the team that we are certainly grateful and very proud of the different accomplishments over the years. It's been a decade of different challenges. When we started with the independent ATA, Aruba was in the midst of a closure of the refinery. So even more of the eyeballs turned towards tourism. So we had to take care of that, and you feel that personally. Then in the midst of the past decade or so, Venezuela challenge, with the collapse of the Venezuelan market, which represented, in comparison to the other markets which follow Venezuela, it was a huge volume and contribution for the economy. So again, another moment of pressure on the tourism industry to deliver and make sure that Aruba's economy and well-being continues or can continue to rely on tourism. And then, of course, the pandemic.
Yeah.
So aside from everything else,
Challenges
aside from
and challenges
everything
and
else,
challenges,
I think these are three pivotal moments also that no matter how you look at it, that Aruba was able to overcome successfully in general. So I think there's a lot to be said about not only the ATA as an organization, but also about collaboration between entities, but also beyond the three entities here at the table
Great.
also.
The beauty about life is that most of the times we do not know where the road may lead. But luckily today, the road led right here for me to have this conversation with the three of you. So I'd like to move to the story of the day, the state of the tourism industry in Aruba. So we're seeing recovery, we're seeing record numbers. The U.S. Travel Association announced that they're forecasting 6% growth annually until 2032. We're seeing competitors in the region also performing well. So let's dive into how is the state of the Aruban tourism? How are we doing? What can you tell us about how 2023 has been doing so far?
Well, overall, indeed, I think you mentioned it, and I think hopefully this is very known amongst the community and everybody feels it, etc. So certainly, we've seen a tremendous recovery, and that has continued to be the case this year. We project to close the year with an increase of 10% in arrivals, tourism arrivals in comparison to 2019. And we forecast to close the year with an increase of 21% in terms of receipts coming in. So the monetary value coming in directly through tourism, that is slated to show an increase of 21%. So I think these two numbers and, of course, the numbers that are shared by the other entities at the table certainly are a reflection of that.
Okay.
And then we'll talk about different challenges that also we need to be mindful of in terms of the trend. But when sticking to the numbers and to answer your question directly, these are the facts.
Good. Tisa, do you see the same thing? I mean, you have members at the association, and they provide you with updates. I do not imagine. I think that's a given. What are these numbers telling you?
Yeah, I think we see the same thing. So we had Aruba had a quick and strong recovery, especially compared to many other destinations. I say that it's thanks to the reputation of Aruba as a vacation destination, thanks to the many years of a great service we've provided and a great product that we have, and of course the great marketing efforts that Aruba continues to make. What we see that has sort of shifted since the pandemic is in terms of the accommodation sector. You'll see the hotels, for example, since the pandemic have led what we call a rate strategy rather than a volume strategy. So you'll see occupancy is lower, but the rates are higher. So your RevPAR, which is really our main measurement, we call it RevPAR, revenue per available room, that is up a little bit. And that is because, again, lower occupancy, so fewer guests staying, but with a higher rate. Part of that comes because of the demand that shifted after the pandemic that you could push for that rate strategy, but also because we have a labor shortage. So with a labor shortage, you as a company, as a hotel, you're in a bit better of a position to have fewer guests, but still earn the revenue that you need to earn. And then on the other hand, next to that, you'll see that in the vacation rental sector, there's been a little bit of growth in occupancy. Of course, the inventory is also growing really fast, so that can have an effect long term. But that's where we stand right now.
Great. Joost, I think you're going to say you also agree that recovery is doing good, and you can and you can confirm the numbers. I mean,
Let's continue.
you're the first, or maybe one of the first entities to see how many people are visiting Aruba. So the numbers that you're seeing, I mean, airlines, airlift, passengers.
Yeah. Well, they're in line, of course, with what both of the ladies already said. But what I can add to it, it is not only recovery. Of course, Aruba has recovered at a rapid pace, especially if you compare it with other countries here in the region. But in general, without looking to the COVID situation and the recovery of that, is that IATA, that's the Association of Airlines in the world, they forecast a growth up to 8.5 billion passengers in the air in 2037, and it is, if you compare it with what we have today, that's almost double the size of passenger volume. So the industry of traveling, and in that traveling industry, the tourism sector is the biggest part, that will grow enormously in the upcoming years. And I think that so the volume of the business is not the issue for us. I think with a strong brand as Aruba is, we will have a part of that pie for sure. I'm not afraid for that. But the passengers and the visitors of Aruba will be much more demanding over time, because the competition is also very strong. It's becoming stronger and stronger. And that is, I think, our challenge, not the volume itself, but to keep that relevant pie of it, that significant pie of it for Aruba. And that, that is, I think, the challenge and the struggle for the future.
Okay.
I'm quite positive about that, by the way, but we should focus on that.
Okay,
It's
so
not
there's
only
I
about
think it's
volume.
about, yeah, and
There's
I
a
think
lot
it's
of
about being
opportunities.
integer to your vision and
That
positioning.
is very important.
So think about integrity in this respect. So we all stand for a certain vision and positioning of Aruba. And the vision in itself entails in a way that at a certain point, and that can be heavily debated whether we passed that point already or not. I mean, but at a certain point, you will be talking about capping or limiting the expansion in terms of room inventory. And that basically also entails then that you are, in a way, capping and limiting the volume coming in because of the offer that you're adjusting. And that is in line also with the strategy to increase the value that comes in through every single visitor. So we are, sometimes we joke at the ATA and we say, oh, we wish we had more land. We wish we had more space. And that's also debatable, by the way. But anyway, it's just to put it in context. But we are limited in terms of
Yeah, we have a
resources.
physical
So
border.
it is a balance. It is a balance between ultimately what is good for the quality of life of residents, hand in hand with offering a visitor experience that is of a high quality, hand in hand with making sure that the economy continues to contribute in the way that we desire through tourism. And lastly, it is about all of that going hand in hand with as much protection as possible of nature and environment. So it's
It's a
just
tough task.
just to add to what Joost just mentioned.
And for me to add, I would say that many in the community would say that we should not be talking about it one day. We should already be talking about it. So it may be that an action may not take place yet today, but we should have a plan. And it still seems like Aruba as a unit, so as we talk about being stakeholders and partners, that we don't really yet have a joint conversation or a joint decision or a joint plan on what that should look like for Aruba. Aruba is small. We've done really, really well with the size that we have. But labor shortage is just one sign, right? With more inventory coming, that labor shortage is only going to become worse. Land is an issue. But there's a lot of other issues that have to do with the capacity of the island. And you remember we were talking about stayover visitors, but you're also talking about cruise ship passenger arrivals. And all of that adds to the volume of people that you have on the island all on the same day, and how much can Aruba handle. And I do believe that it is important and urgent for Aruba to have this conversation with the proper stakeholders and make a decision and create a plan. There are many countries who are already doing that and setting some limits in place, or at least some strategy in place, which we haven't done yet. I know there have been some studies made in the past, like carrying capacity studies. They haven't been made public most of the time. I believe it should be public information. The whole community should be involved in this major decision for the island. And then, of course, create a strategy for it as well.
So, of course, opportunities lie ahead, but obviously there are challenges. How do we tackle these challenges? There's a number of challenges. Just sitting here, we mentioned 3 or 4. So how do we go about this to ensure that in 5 to 10 years, the Aruban tourism industry is still number 1 on the island, but also in the region? How do we make sure that happens or stays that way?
I think
I know the conversation should be already had or should be taking place, but if it's not, what do we do?
I think that just I not totally in agreement because there have been many conversations. So one could argue that there have been too many conversations and a lack of actions. And I mean, the recent rounds of research, for instance, if we go back the past, let's say, 5 to 7 years, we took it upon us to facilitate again that, spur the conversation, produce new updated plans, if you will, and make sure that, okay, these end up on a policy level, also as being an integral part of the vision, because tourism is not only something pertaining to the Ministry of Tourism in case of government, who has a lot of actions also under their wing, but it pertains to almost every single ministry because it's an integral matter. But in any case, if you go back the past 5-7 years, we created a document, a bottom-up approach was applied in that respect. We call that document Comida para Futuro, and it contains a list of, I think, 100 actions with actor, with timeline, with, a lot of the things specified. And of course, in what pertains to what is in our court as the ATA, we have then continued the path of making sure that it's part of the business plan, that it's part of the investments on our end, it's part of our advocacy agenda as well. One of the actions was to also conduct a carrying capacity study, and for which we are now updating the model also, so as to be able to be ready to be at the table to discuss things that are very, very instrumental that are underway. For example, the update of the zoning legislation for Aruba. So that's just an example. But we try to influence decision-making and actions through these types of research. And these are just some examples. But how to tackle the challenge? I think ultimately it is about prioritization. And also, I think that, and we've had efforts in the past, but it is about that level of prioritization that has to be integral on a governmental level. And that means that, yes, the Ministry of Tourism and Ministry of Tourism has her area of responsibility. But then to take it another level, I think there has to be like a national agenda that has to be carried by all ministries, and there has to be a watchdog type of function or a structure linked to that specifically. And there we could think about private-public partnership to be that guardian of, the execution of critical things.
It's important to add real quick, just that also the perception that we cannot grow if we put, like, for example, if we truly get to a moratorium position where we no longer allow more condos and hotels to be built, for example, as an example, there is still room for growth even if there is a limit. Because at this point we're about 50% occupancy, I believe, for vacation rentals. So that means half of your inventory is still not being used. And then hotels currently are, let's say, about an average 80% occupancy. So there is still room for growth even if you don't grow inventory. And the more we grow inventory, in the end, what you're actually doing is lowering value.
So there needs to be a collective effort. But before I know the ATA.
That's a very good point, by the way, because it's not like we are conscious of all of the projects underway, but we face shortage on various fronts, and in order to spearhead a sustainable development, we have to pause, we have to address these things, and then continue. But then you will reach at a certain point
that you have to.
Let's say think time spent 10 years. Think time spent 10 years. You will need to be talking about
And we should talk to the community, like Tisa said, because if the new passengers still bring added value to the community, that is a question that only the community can answer, right? And sometimes, if I may, in personal note, I am committed mountain biker, and when I do that often on Saturday mornings in the close to the Alto Vista. And then I see already early in the morning buses with tourists. And then I think, can it still be used, the chapel, for a prayer on Saturday morning by the local community? That's a question. I don't have an answer. But I think if you would ask the local community if they still feel comfortable on the island to live here, and that the quality of life is still up to par for them, then I think you can start answering the question, can we have more tourists coming to the island, yes or
Yes
no?
or no, yeah.
But it starts with the community. If they have added value, if they have a comfortable way of life, if they see the benefits of the tourism sector and a growing tourism sector, then it's okay. But at a certain time, but for sure, we should also have a long-term perspective, because what gives a comfortable way of life now does not mean that you can continue with that in the upcoming decade. So there should be a plan for the future to be sustainable, not only that we reduce our CO2 footprint, but also in a way that we can handle all those passengers still on the island in a comfortable way for the local community.
Yeah, so I think we all can agree we want that. So Aruba should remain a attractive enough destination for visitors, and we're talking about 10, 15 years that we should have a plan in place that ensures that. And while we know it has to be a collective effort between a number of partners together with the government, efforts are being done by your organizations. I mean, if we look at the global conference, global travel conference that ATA hosted a couple of weeks back, you mentioned in the plan a niche approach to attracting a different type of tourist, a more conscious type of tourist. This is, I think, one of the ways that ATA is trying to push this effort.
Yeah, and it stems, so our actions go back to what the visitor says, but also what the community says. And we have a saying internally at the ATA, especially as it pertains to destination development. We have a saying now that, and don't look at it as building something physical, literally, but the saying goes, build it for the locals and the visitors will come. And that speaks, if you think about it, it speaks about the mentality match and norms and values match of your visitor and your community. So the beauty would be that you attract like-minded visitors as well, that respect the same values and norms and fabric of the society that for you represents, I'm happy. I like living in Aruba. This is quality of life for me, or a high quality of life for me. So we try to do that through different avenues that includes destination development, investments, advocacy work, and prioritization of different areas, including niche development. So wellness, for instance, Joost, the mountain bike trails where I'm constructing
I
at
love
this
it.
moment.
Thank you very much,
That's good
Ronella.
good for the
For you, Joost.
that's good for the community
Yes.
and good for the visitors. So
Exactly.
that's a clear example. And so we try to create other experiences. We focus on the pillars of the experience of Aruba. And that goes back to our beaches, the quality of our waters, and different other efforts. We focus on security, so offering a safe haven for our community. But of course, in this regard,
Also the travel community.
focusing on
Yeah.
our visitors, and we focus on the hospitality, service provision, amongst other as well. So there are different areas of focus that go back to what is good for the community and what is good for the visitors. And on the marketing communication front, of course, there we try to attract those who are like-minded, those who have the propensity to leave more monetary economic value behind. So these are things that we take into account.
I believe there are studies behind that for choosing that direction. It's not only something that you took from the air and decided to go that way, but numbers back it up to say, hey, this is the direction we should go into.
Yeah, it's incredible the work that our strategy planning and research unit produces, amongst other. A lot of research and a lot of knowledge and lengthy and hefty sometimes discussions that go into what is the best decision for Aruba. So there is a lot of great minds that think and work for Aruba prior to us making a move on a particular front.
Good.
And we hope to get it right all the time, but we're not perfect. But most of the time, it does work.
Great. Tisa, I think in line with what Ronella just said, if it's good for the local community will be good for those visiting Aruba. You talked about labor being a challenge. We have a shortage. AHATA is currently pushing a new campaign, 𝐴.𝑇𝐴, I believe. How is this in line with what we just talked about? That feeling of, hey, this is good for me working in hospitality or the tourism sector, in such a way that it translates to, hey, me attracting more of those visitors from abroad.
Yeah, I think, well, to answer your last question, I think the idea is, I think what we've been talking about in this podcast is that maybe Aruba needs to start redefining how we measure growth, right? And how we measure success. So it's not necessarily in the volume of arrivals, for example. And that's why we're talking about more value per tourist, for example. That could be one way to go. I still believe that, again, that joint conversation needs to take place with the community and all the partners so that we're all on the same page and moving within the same strategy. So what we're doing in the meantime is, in line with what Ronella was mentioning, is you want to make sure that your service is at its highest potential. That's quality, right? Quality is the service that you can provide. You need people to be able to do that. And when you have a labor shortage, it's more difficult to accomplish. So we are indeed trying to not only make the industry attractive, make work in general attractive, and to see if we can initiate more people to enter the industry. What we've also noticed is that there's been a long time that we thought, or we knew, that there are many people on the island that are not interested in working in the HoReCa sector because they don't want to work weekends, they don't want to work nights, or they have their other reasons. But then we also realized that there actually are people who do want to work in the industry, but there's a disconnect. When we started asking questions after job fairs, for example, you could hear the employer saying, no, yes, there were a lot of people, but they weren't adequate. So I started asking, what does that mean, not adequate? And it turned out that a lot of it was a disconnect. For example, the way they were dressed for the job interview, the way they were dressed when they arrived to ask for an application form. So it wasn't necessarily their capabilities or their desire to work. In the end, what an employer wants more than anything else, even beyond skill, is their attitude and their commitment to providing good work and good service. So what we want to do is connect those people, those who do want to work, and the employers that are seeking people that wish to work. So that's why we come up with these tools, including amitraha.com, which is a website that helps people with tips on how to look for work, how to prepare for interviews, how to dress properly. It's just to sort of close that gap.
Okay. Well, we have conversations regularly, and this is one of the topics that we talk about. How do we get more people to join the labor market? And of course, the one job seekers, they have a role to play, of course, but we also talk about employers also stepping up to the plate and doing their part. What do you think they can do to ensure that we attract those in the tourism sector?
Yes, I think that's a very valid question. And I think one of them is, of course, again, understanding the newer generations of employees. I think that's a big one. We tried to work on that one as well to try to help. Because, again, for example, this example I mentioned about, they showed up in shorts to ask for a job application. The employer doesn't understand why somebody would do that. The person who did that doesn't understand why the employer thinks that's wrong. So we need to sort of close that gap also. And when you're in a location like Aruba that's small with a small labor force, you may need to be a little more open-minded, right? You may need to be a little bit more accepting, a little more open, and find the qualities in the people and have a more broader view on that. So we're trying to help with that also. Of course, when there's a labor shortage, you need to review your salary structure. You need to review your benefits. How creative are we with benefits? There may be a more creative way to do benefits. So I think there's many things employers can do to make the job also more attractive. But I still believe there's also a lot of people out there that are just not sure yet how to even enter the market.
Yeah, okay. So hopefully amitraha helps with this and helps with getting more people in the labor market, in the tourism sector, and help grow the entire tourism industry. So growing the tourism industry means being able to add more airlines and flights and help more passengers come through to Aruba. I know you're busy with that. I mean, you probably see more tourists than anybody on the island. You have a big project going on. It's called Gateway 2030. What can you tell us about this?
Well, that we have it in the construction now. So no, the gateway. Currently, when you go to the airport, you can see where we are with the first phase phase 1A of the gateway program, and that comes down to a complete new baggage handling hall, and a baggage handling system in it, and also an expansion of the US check-in hall. That is basically 1A, and you see it coming online. It will we will bring it into the operation at the end of 2024, so it will be delivered most probably around the summer in 2024, but we still need some months to commission it, to test it out, because it is a state-of-the-art new baggage handling system, and that needs to be tested first before you bring it into your own operation, so that takes another month. And that will help the customer experience, especially for people traveling out to the US, that strange element that you need to pick up your suitcase again and to put it on a belt 10 meters further. That is but that is basically has to do with that we are not completely in compliance with the regulations in the US. And with that new baggage handling system, we will be in compliance with all the regulation, and we can skip that part. So and also the second security check can be eliminated, and that will help enormously, I think, in the passenger flow, in the passenger experience, for people traveling out to the US destinations. But meanwhile, it's still 1.5 years from now, and we will definitely see a big peak in passenger volume in this winter. So we are also trying the utmost to be prepared for that, knowing that the gateway program as a whole has not been finished yet.
Yeah.
And maybe also interesting to say that we are now in the final stage of the design of the second phase, and that is basically the new gates that we will bring online, to add 3 more connected gates to our gate capacity, to create more capacity at the apron side, at the air side of the airport, and we hope to bring that in construction in the first half of 2024 already, and then we have 2 parallel parts in the construction of the gateway program. And it will help also to reduce waiting times when you arrive in a peak on Saturday from the
Super
US, for
Saturdays.
example. Then sometimes you need to stay in your aircraft for 20 or sometimes even 30 minutes, and that's, I hope, that can be eliminated as when we have delivered those new gates.
Great. How happy are you with the current progress of the project?
I'm quite happy. I think construction is a very challenging business, so to say. And that has nothing to do with Aruba. Sometimes they say, that is Aruba. No, that's not Aruba. I am from the aviation industry, also in the Netherlands, and we faced the same challenges. Big construction projects are difficult to manage. But in that context, I think we are doing a great job. I'm very happy that we decided 2 years ago to award it to the local market. So there's a local group of contractors working in a joint venture on the execution. I'm very happy that we took that decision. I've never regret that decision. It's good for the economy, for the local players, but it's also, it gives a feeling of comfort. They are here to stay. We are here to stay. So whatever goes wrong during a construction process can be corrected in a normal conversation. And in the past, we also have worked with international contractors, and they are not that loyal to the urban market as the local employers are. And that is a huge difference. You have another conversation. Of course, things go wrong, but it can be corrected. And there's willingness to make this construction project a big success. And so in the whole context, I'm very pleased how we are doing.
Great. You feel there's a amount of pride that goes into a local developer saying, "Hey, I worked on."
For sure.
I can
You
imagine.
feel it on the construction site when you speak to the people. We just this week we will deliver the new stands, also done by a local contractor. And when you talk, and that's the end of the rehab of the whole apron. So the last part comes online this week. And when you talk to, yeah, of course I can. The RVM is doing the work, and if you hear the people working every day on that apron, you feel the pride. And that is one of the most important elements. If you can bring that, then the rest will follow.
I think what you're seeing on the construction end is what you see daily on the hospitality and tourism end. It's that local pride that we have to provide a service to our tourists, the visitors, that attract them to come back. Would you agree?
Yes, I think we need to be proud. There's nothing nicer than knowing that you made somebody happy, right? And in tourism, we have that opportunity multiple times a day. So that does create a pride. You know, the people who work in the industry want to see Aruba do well. They want to see the visitor happy with their experience here. They want us to be better than the other destinations, right? So there's a nice pride that goes along with that. But I think service in general requires that feeling. You know, to wish to be of good service to somebody requires love and pride.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, and I just wanted to touch upon that because at the end of the day, we are in the business of selling a service. That is something that is not tangible. You do not produce it and you can adjust this immediately. So it is a complex value chain consisting of many, many people, some with a former role, some who work formally in the tourism sector, but many others who have interaction and opportunities to really make a positive impact on the experience of how the service is experienced, basically, and the service being a vacation in Aruba. So the people are instrumental in this regard in making that success happen and that success continue. And one of the things that we conducted research on over the past years is what is the essence of the Aruban hospitality that makes it so different than others? Because we keep getting the feedback from visitors, the people are, you know, that's the best, I feel at home. And we say that we formulated the DNA of the Aruban, and it is part of our DNA. So we do realize that it is important. We are open, spontaneous. We can adjust to different languages. That also makes someone feel at home. We can even understand different cultures. So not entirely. I might not be able to understand the Dutch culture entirely, but many do, and we can understand nuances of that culture aside from speaking the language. Same goes for the U.S. market, and same goes for the Latin American market. The currency, so it is an easy experience, and the people are very hospitable by nature. So it is not made necessarily, but these are all go back to history. So that was the conclusion, basically. So that is something that we need to maintain, and we need to continue to evolve in line with the evolution of the consumers, what people want, differences in generations, so the new generation of visitors.
Okay. So this goes back to, if the people is happy at home, we are more willing to invite them into our homes.
Oh, certainly.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think it also
Yes.
And
Yes.
who would wouldn't you rather visit a happy home than
Of
an
course,
unhappy
of
home?
course,
Yes, of course.
of
But yes,
course,
indeed, it
of
starts
course.
with those of us at home.
Okay. I know we talked a lot about challenges and some concerns, limitations, but I'd like to give you the opportunity as well to talk about those things that excite you. So looking into the future, looking into 2024, 2025, what is exciting that's going to happen that we should be taken into account or maybe look forward to?
The airport expansion, the airport upgrade, right? That's a big one, right?
You have to come up with another answer.
No, yeah, okay. Yeah, no, I agree with, of course. But for me, no, well, yeah, I think that our challenge of the airport, or what excites me, is not only to bring the new infrastructure online. It begins with that, so that's the foundation. But that cannot be everything. I think that the airport in general, and probably that applies for all companies, should have a soul. What is driving us? And that's what we are bringing to the airport. I think right now, if you ask a security officer at the airport what is your daily task, he would most probably not only say, I'm a security officer and I'm checking, asking the people to take the belts off and all of that. They will say, I'm a host. And of course, I'm a security officer, but I'm also a host. And that is what I say. If you feel that in your company, then you have a success.
Then you're doing a good job.
Then you have a success, and then you are sure that people work with a heart and not only with their minds. And the passenger will feel that. The visitor will feel that. And if it's not only the airport, but also in the hotel industry or in the shops or in the streets or whatever, people are there and they are open to welcome the visitors. They will feel that. They will certainly feel real from fake.
Genuine.
Differentiate,
I think what it would be very exciting for us all is to see how the the Z generation and younger, which I just heard is alpha apparently, is will change how we do tourism on the island and how they will affect how we provide service or the product that we serve. You know, what innovations will we have? What kind of new things will we be offering for entertainment, for example? But that's what I believe is exciting because there are younger generations coming and they will, I believe, heavily influence our economy.
Great.
I think my answer goes back to what makes working in the tourism industry so exciting, which is that it's so dynamic and such a changing world. So a lot of things are similar, do not change over time. So we talk about the hospitality, the importance, the service. Yeah, that does continue. It continues to be, it has to continue to evolve. But what excites me is that there are many opportunities, many opportunities, and there are challenges, which is also exciting. So it's a paradox, but that excites me as well. And there are many things that are still to be done. So we continue to see, I think, the beauty and part of the success of Aruba, even though if we don't get everything right, there's a lot of things that on a comparative basis are in place, are being tackled. A lot of hard work that goes into making sure that we can just reap all of the successes that we've seen. That will continue to be the case. And we have thus also the opportunity to tackle so many more things that need to be tackled, and we will continue to do that. And that's just an exciting industry to work in. There are a lot of moving parts,
Keeps the job exciting.
Yeah,
certainly.
And the sustainability part. That's another.
Yes.
I think that for the
Yes.
future, when I talk about the aviation industry, then it is a very polluting industry. Flying from one place to another place is very polluting, and we should come up. We as aviation sector should come up with a solution for that, and that's why we are so investing also as AAA in connecting the islands here in the region electrically over time, for example. That is one way to approach it, but also we give incentives. We are working now on a program to give incentives to airlines who come with sustainable aviation fuel on board, to let them pay less if they have sustainable aviation fuel on board. And of course also the ground operations of the airport itself should become zero emissions in 2030. So that's why we are all driving now, not me, myself, and not yet electrically, but also in the apron. We have invested in e-buses instead of fossil fuel buses. And that helps a lot in the end to create a more sustainable industry. And that is key. I think that will be the priority number one for the tourism and travel industry to become sustainable.
More sustainable. No, I think that also you can also see the cruise sector is also busy with thinking of how to become more sustainable. I know in the global travel conference, this was also a topic. I know AHATA also stands a lot for sustainability. Tisa, you drive electric cars, so you lead by example. Before we head to the final segment, I do not want to miss the opportunity to talk about the collective effort, so the partnerships and how this partnership between the three of you and with other partners on the island, even with stakeholders outside of the island, how this collective effort ensures or takes the experience for the traveler into account and makes sure the experience remains top-notch.
I think for us, if you're talking about us, I think that's like a given almost. It's in our
Genes.
It's in our genes to think that way. So I think any strategy that we do either separately or jointly, that is ultimately our goal. And I don't think that even has to be discussed almost, right? It's a given. So I think it's more about how we can elevate the efforts by working together, right? One of my observations when I moved to Aruba, back to Aruba 10 years ago, was that in Aruba there were so many great things taking place and so many people busy with great projects, but we didn't necessarily all connect the dots. So we were all sort of individually busy. But I've seen a lot of improvement in that. I've seen a lot of collaboration. I've seen a lot of partnerships grow and grow and grow. I think even with the three of us, we've seen it grow over time by working on more and more things together and communicating more with each other. Like in any friendship and in any partnership, communication is the key, and I believe that's taking place more. We can only elevate our strategies, our outcome by doing so.
Okay, great.
And I think, and that goes hand in hand with also having a great team of professionals. So there's a lot of talent locally. I think what Joost mentioned earlier in terms of, you're very proud about the fact that the project was awarded to a local entity. I think it says a lot about the expertise on island, the potential for them to deliver, but also the expertise that has certainly grown over the past years because of this simple project, or complex project, to be more specific. But you see that also in the hotel sector, and you see that also in the case of the ATA, our professionals here, our professionals abroad. So that we should be, you have that as your backbone. And we're sitting here talking about these three industries, or these three pillars. But you have a lot of professionalism also in other areas of the island. And you see that time and time again. And we get, a lot of the times, we get the compliment. I'm sure you get it as well, but we sit in several meetings abroad together. And there's a lot of compliment that is given to Aruba for that aspect, because our partners are able to compare. And this goes from airlines to tour operators, to cruise lines, etc.
See a higher level of professionalism on the
yes.
island, and that goes indeed also to the small entrepreneurs, right, who are coming up with new little businesses to help support the industry. Indeed.
Great. Joost?
Yeah, open source of information. I think that is very important. And my history is not in Aruba is not that long, of course, only 4 years. But you see it improving, and also the hotels are also working on new projects, right? And we invite them to come over to AAA to see how we have organized our project management organization, for example. Just exchanging information and to be sure that whatever we invent at AAA, that we need to be open about it and to share that information, the good and what goes wrong, with other parties who are in a similar project, for example, the hotel industry, for example. And recently I had a conversation with one of the hotels about that, and that's very nice, because what they are experiencing, we are experiencing also. So let's
share that information.
Let's share that.
Yeah, great.
Instead of sitting in your own silo.
Great. So before we close out this episode of A.T.A. Talks About, I want to ask my guests, so Ronella, Tisa, and Joost, for some final thoughts and some bold predictions. Who wants to go first? The last time we did gentlemen first, because we were more ladies than gentlemen sitting with me at a table, but I wanted to flip it back to ladies
Bold
first.
predictions from any perspective?
Any
So
perspective, yeah. So
anything-
share anything
okay.
that's bold that you think, hey, in I don't know, in 2025 we can expect this, or we're seeing this happening, or and some final thoughts that you'd like to share with the
Oh,
audience.
fantastic! Yeah.
The only prediction. Sorry, go ahead.
No, but what comes to mind immediately is technological advancements, for sure. But then making what we do and what we can offer more effective and efficient. And that doesn't eliminate the human capital and its importance, but it is remarkable with the emergence, or more emergence of AI. It is remarkable what can be done at this moment already. So that will continue to present new opportunities, basically. So it's about managing that in the correct and as best manner as possible to be able to capitalize
Great.
from that.
And with a labor shortage, it may even be quite necessary, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I
Yes.
think, and that brings me to, I think, I touched upon it earlier. I think I predict that HR and employee benefits will change as we go forward. That we become creative in how we offer benefits.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree, of course, with the ladies. But and if I need to add something to it, I would say that, well, a bold prediction, let me do a bold prediction, that
Let's go for it, Joost.
in 5 years from now,
I can guess
Yeah.
where you're going.
we fly electrically
Good.
to the other islands for a ticket price that is 50% of the current ticket price.
Good.
That's the bold part.
So let's remember this, everyone.
Well,
Yes.
the two elements.
Both are bold.
But no, it is bold, but still, I think it's doable, and we are working very hard on it with the other islands to make that happen.
No, we support you in that. Joost.
I know.
We
I
all
feel
do.
supported.
Great. So let me quote the U.S. Travel Association because I think it rings so true to the Aruban tourism. Essential to our so tourism is essential to our economy, indispensable to our community, and irreplaceable as an industry.
Yes, we can diversify our economy a little bit, but we can indeed never replace the importance of tourism for Aruba.
All
Yeah,
right.
I concur, and as part of our agenda, even we advocate for diversification of the economy, precisely because of the things that were brought forward today. You know, when you think about long term, like 10 years, 10 plus 10, 15 years, we need to be, then it will be a different era in terms of, okay, how else will you expand the tourism industry? And value will continue to be even more important as opposed to volume attraction.
Good. Joost, just looking at you, if you have anything that you don't have to.
No, I think the tourism industry will definitely be #1 industry for the years to come, for the overseeable future.
All right.
And everything what we can add to it is nice, but we should never forget to invest in the tourism industry.
Great. I don't have anything else to add to that. So Ronella, Tisa, and Joost, thank you once again for joining me today in another
you.
episode of A.T.A Talks About. And I like to say, let's stay curious. Let's keep on exploring. Let's keep on discovering and learning more about Aruba's #1 and most important economic driver, the tourism industry. So allow me to close this one out. This episode is a production of the Aruba Tourism Authority, 𝑆𝑡𝑎𝑝 Mix Studio, and Create. Be sure to follow this and other episodes of A.T.A Talks About on your favorite podcast platform. And until we meet again, until next time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.